Okay, and welcome back. It's time for hour number 2. Glad you're along this evening. We spend each day trying to learn a little bit more about the madness that surrounds us, and one of the people who comes along each week to lend a hand is Dr. Bill Deagle, M.D., and he is always a fountain of knowledge, information, insight, and all kinds of things. The latest from Fukushima is it's really getting to be science fiction over there. The numbers I'm seeing, get this one. It's a new record high at Fukushima. Unbelievably, extraordinarily radioactive. Almost 8 million times the limit. Even more toxic since it was from early on in the disaster. This is crazy. You'll see the story later on tonight at Rense. Radiation levels are much greater than anything expected from Fukushima, says a Navy expert. 2,500 picocuries by the square meter of particulate detected. That would be even higher if the gases were included. This is crazy. Nobody seems to know what's going on there. TEPCO, of course, now has been firmly exposed as not only incompetent but and inept, but completely and utterly criminal in its negligence, its liability. It has done nothing. How many, and I've asked this question before, not rhetorically, but I've asked it, has anyone heard of, and the answer is no, a worldwide conference of the best nuclear physicists, engineers, anyone else involved with potential to help, a conference, a get-together, a meeting, a retreat by these people to try to figure out what to do over there? No, there has been none. Not a single one in 3 years on March the 11th. Nothing. Should have been the first thing done. TEPCO should have called for it. The Japan government should have called for it. Nothing. And I think the bottom line reason is nuclear physicists don't want to get involved with these kinds of meetings because they'd have to admit that there's really nothing they can do. And that would be negative PR to the people. Hello, Bill. Welcome back. How are you? Are you there, Bill? I hear something. All right, let's see. Let me see if I have any email notices that Bill is not there. He should be there. All right, well, let me go back to what I was talking about, and we'll try and get him back on the phone here. This is crazy time. Oh, and by the way, the nuclear facility, that storage facility, so-called in New Mexico, is emitting plutonium now. They don't know what happened, they say. They really don't know whether it could happen again. In other words, they don't know what's going on down there underground in their storage facilities. They do know that plutonium is being released and was released. So, not good. Not good. As I said, record high contaminated water has leaked again from one of the storage tanks at Fukushima. The leaked water contained an extraordinary number, 230 million becquerels per liter of water. This is beta-emitting radionuclides, consisting mainly of strontium-90, which is probably the worst. It's right up there with plutonium. The level is about 7.6 million times the government's permissible standards. The highest level of radioactive substances detected so far in the series of tank leaks, there have been lots of them, was this one, 7.6 million times higher than the government's allowable permissible standards. Remember, those tanks only have a life expectancy of 5 years. They're 2 years old, some of them. They're already leaking. They're sitting on mush. So we know what's going to happen to that water eventually. It's all going to be dumped into the ocean. Simple. Are you with us yet, Bill?
I think I am. We had some technical problems with audio. But we're going to have that fixed up with the blue box shortly, so that'll be next time we won't have that issue.
Yeah, well, that's Mercury and
if we have a next segment, we can connect by cell if necessary. I have a good cell phone.
Well, you want us to call you back on the cell right now? We can.
We could do the cell right now, because if you want to get a better audio.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll make sure they have your number.
They do.
Okay.
They already get
Okay, yeah, they can call you on your cell. Okay. More than 9 hours before the new leak, by the way, was found, an alarm indicating a rise in the tank's water surface level was issued. Now, what would cause a tank's water surface level to rise, if nothing else was put in it? Weird. Rainwater? Workers thought the device was out of order and couldn't find any leaks when they patrolled the area. But it's there. Again, the numbers are just astronomical. They are just insane. And this water is got nowhere to go but into the ocean. These tanks are literally rotting already. They're rusting. And in a couple of years, they'll be gone. They won't hold anything. And there's nowhere to put this stuff except in the Pacific Ocean. We still don't know what happened to the sardines. They're gone. We don't think they went south. We think they're dead. 80% of the salmon didn't come back for some reason. The sea stars, or starfish as we used to call them when we were kids, gone up and down the entire West Coast for the most part. No one understands that. So anyway, that's where we are in just a quick overview. All right, William, let's go.
Yeah, so we're in a much better situation now. I have a better audio. I have backups to backups. Can you hear me well now?
Yeah, you're all right. Fine.
Okay. The first thing is I want to mention a couple things. The most important thing I try to do on my show is to get people to ask better questions, or questions they should have asked, but they didn't. And the first question is, number one, when the earthquake happened, reactor number one was already broken before the tsunami hit.
We think there's evidence, Bill. Excuse me. You're right. I think, but there's even more to it. I think that at least 3 of the 4 were completely knocked out of commission, if not destroyed, by the earthquake.
Right, exactly. Well, you know number one for sure, but the other ones maybe.
Yeah.
But here's the point. There were 5 other reactors in the northern island of Honshu that were hit, that were badly damaged, but they didn't lose complete control.
Correct. Okay?
And if we ask the question, how likely now there's a 500% increase in 5 or plus or bigger earthquakes since the 11th of March 2011, how likely is it in the next, let's say, 2 years, 5 years, that we're going to have an earthquake, not just to damage Fukushima, but to destroy or damage other reactors, not just in...
Likelihood would be, 85 to 95%, right?
Right. So in other words, all we have to say is, okay, we have one immediate problem. If we had the scientists, I know we repeatedly hear the story that there's nothing we can do. I'm writing a paper, which I didn't get it completed for tonight, of the technical things that can be done to stop the Fukushima disaster. But the real problem is we're up against something bigger than Fukushima. Number one, Fukushima is collaborating with Israel on nuclear weapons that could soon be used again in a World War III scenario.
Correct.
Number two, spontaneously, this is without any weaponized earthquakes happening. We can have a large enough earthquake that we could lose more than one reactor site, so OI and many others to go.
Yep.
So I think what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a situation where the powers that be know that, in fact, believe it or not, despite the fact that Fukushima is the largest environmental disaster in history, it is almost like just a forewarning of something bigger. And that might be bigger in 2 years or 5 years, but it's going to happen. And the disaster is we haven't moved the nuclear material away. The Japanese have leveraged their debt of their country against these reactors, so that if they didn't start them back up in 30 to 60 days, their country was going to go bankrupt.
Correct.
And so what we're dealing with is a house of cards financially, but also an environmental disaster. Now, with this release of 100 tons plus, they say 100 tons, but they don't really know. They say they left a valve open. I don't know if that's really the story, but there's absolutely no intent on having secondary catchment if these containers, or these that hold the radiation, to prevent it from going directly into the sea. Which means, and all along, they've never been filtering those strontium or cesium, which are long-acting isotopes. And then these start showing up in the system, and I mentioned it a few weeks ago, specifically what each of these isotopes does in a biological system. The problem is going to happen, firstly, that the northern hemisphere is going to start having, if we have a major surge of radiation, acute radiation sickness. And it'll happen with things like nasal nosebleeds, abdominal pain, blurred vision, vertigo, disorientation, rectal bleeding, skin lesions. it's going to show up in more subtle ways, but people that are weak or elderly or the unborn are going to have much more dramatic effects. So the number of women that may spontaneously miscarry if there's a big radiation surge, the number of seniors that might develop cardiac arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation or tachyarrhythmias, the number of people that will get a depression of their immune system, especially with these emerging airborne plagues like H7N9, which doesn't kill too many birds, but it's very deadly for humans. And the chances also that these flus, when they converge with a depressed population, are going to have it turns out that when there's a high free radical load in a sick or weak population from radiation, it's ideal circumstances to make bugs worse.
Yeah, good point. Bill, let me hold on, please. I don't like this cell phone reception. What were you on just prior to the cell phone?
Just prior to the cell phone, I was on the speakerphone on my regular phone.
Can you get on the headset of that regular phone rather than the speakerphone?
Yes, I'll try to do that.
Yeah, please let me have Todd call you back. I don't like this. It's your...
Yeah.
We hear you, but I don't like the quality. So if you can just get on the...
because people want to hear this.
I want them to hear you perfectly clearly. So just pick up the handset on that phone and don't use the speakerphone. We should be okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and we'll take our break. We'll take our...
The handset doesn't give audio for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, really? All right, we'll use the speakerphone, but you have to get close to it.
Yeah, I will.
All right. We're going to take our break, and we'll come right back with Bill in just a couple minutes. Okay, and we're back. Here at home, by the way, just a quick update. Obama is now beginning his move toward open dictatorial rule of this country. He has mocked and bypassed the Congress and signed a trade liberalization measure today. He's just going for it, and nobody's standing up to him. Isn't that great? Okay, Bill, let's see how you're doing there.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to stay close to the...
Okay, that works good. That's good. You're crisp and clear. Just stay close. Good.
Okay, the key things I want to just review again is, I think Fukushima, believe it or not, although it's the biggest disaster in human history in terms of an environmental disaster, I think it's actually a forewarning of a bigger disaster. And I think that if we just have a 7-level earthquake, we're probably going to have 2 or 3 of these sites like Fukushima lose control of their reactors and they're going to melt down. The next thing is these long-acting isotopes not only killing the ocean, and a lot of people think, well, it's too bad for those people on the West Coast. I did a show yesterday with Dr. William Ray, the head of the Environmental Health Center of Dallas, which is the 7-star center for our environmental patients. We want to send them on for really advanced testing and equipment in Dallas with Dr. William Ray. He's been the past president of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. And they do hair analysis using doctors' data, but they don't measure radioisotopes. I talked to a doctor yesterday through the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, and he has a metabolic lab in Florida, and they're getting a gamma counter. So people will actually be able to test their urine. And I'm trying to negotiate with them so we can figure out also if we can get a profile of the radioisotopes. So that's something in the works right now.
The best device, I've been looking into trying to come up with the money to purchase a handheld device that can actually determine which element it is that is there, which radioactive nuclide, identify it by name. They're about $9,000 or $10,000. I'm actually thinking of maybe holding a fund drive to try to raise money for that and other things. We need the equipment because the government's not going to help us.
Exactly. Now, what that is probably a gamma counter, and the KeV of the isotope will give you an idea.
It is. Yeah.
Of which one it is. So it gives you an idea which isotope is likely present and how many millisieverts per hour, what they're counted.
I don't know if it does sieverts an hour or not. I think it does, but the point is it identifies the nuclide.
Right, and that's important because you want to know which
very
nuclides
important.
Different actions in the biological system.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's a direct linkage between Fukushima and the meltdown of the world economy. We have the tapering, which means they reduce it by 10 billion a month. And what that's done is driven up the interest rates in third world and second world countries. So, when we see these bankers doing swan dives off of high towers, we're almost certainly looking at a kind of a warning sign to the powers that be that they're actually going to do a bank holiday this year.
Well, what those are, of course, are their threats to the higher ups to.
Right, there's threats to the higher ups that if you want this to happen to you, talk. Now, most people don't realize that the amount of espionage going inside big corporations and banks is every bit as intense as it is in the NSA.
Yeah.
And one of the comments made to me by a senior NSA agent back in the mid-'90s is that 90% plus of the budget of the NSA and many of these other agencies is industrial espionage. And in fact, they're often contracted by international, transnational corporations to spy on their corporations, their officers, and other people, so they know everything about them, and they do a data profile so that they know that they're not going to do anything that's going to harm the company or the bottom line. So if they were to tell people, for example, that there was going to be a bank holiday, there'd be a massive run on the banks. And the banks obviously want to bail in people's money, which won't solve the problem. It's like somebody coming in with 20 gunshot wounds and they're bleeding from every orifice. So pouring in 20 or 30 units of blood is like you're just going to have a bloody room. You're not going to have a live patient. So what I think is happening is we see the Sochi Olympics and we see the war drums beating because they didn't treat the Russians with respect, dealing with their very elegant start of the game, their attempts to run a really, really good game. And what I see happening is the actions in Kiev, which obviously have highly armed, not insurgent citizens, but people that literally are paid $50 an hour, which is quite a bit.
And you know who the leaders are. It's their Mossad Zionist agents.
Yeah,
they're running the whole show for Soros and other international Zionist Jew, and they're all in there doing it. Now, by the way, they killed a number of policemen, and obviously with the blessing of Putin and Russia, the government of Ukraine is now beginning to shoot some of the key ringleaders. They're Zionist leaders in many cases, not all.
Right.
Many.
Yeah. What they're going to do is clear out the rat's nest.
That's right.
If I was, let's say, the leader of Russia, I'd already have the Red Army going in there.
I wouldn't be right with you. I'm right with you, step for step.
The Red Army should be already marching in there, coming in on rail.
Let's not call it Red Army. Let's call it the Russian Army.
The Russian Army. Okay. The Russian Army. By the way, the Russian nation now, the tables are turned, is the Christian nation, and America is a whore.
It's exactly what Edgar Casey said in 1932.
Right, and that's what I see. Now, people need to understand what this means. What we're marching to is war is just using as a dialectic to try to force these other nations like Russia and China that have centrally controlled economies and a large enough military force that can resist America to force them, because all the smaller nations they pretty well have. They want to clean up Syria, Iran, which are two out of the three nations that don't have a Rothschild-style bank. If the central control
Iran, yes, North Korea and Cuba are the other two remainers.
Right, and so what happens is what Obama and his globalist buddies are trying to do is take down these nations by the threat of war and threat of nuclear war, and of course the economic takedown, which will put Russia in grave danger. Because if you station all of these missile defense systems, they're in a sense, although they'll say they're defensive, they're actually an offensive weapon system. Because they're saying. Yeah. They're almost like saying to someone, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you get a professional boxer, gets in the ring with a teenager. And they both put on the helmets and the stuff. But the professional boxer says, now, do you want me to hold back or go all the way? Now, the teenager may not know it, but he's in a professional boxer. It doesn't matter if they're a middleweight, light heavyweight, or whatever. A professional boxer can kill you with their bare hands. Even if you're a big person. So you can have a 6'5" person get in with a 5'5" person.
Exactly.
It's a pro boxer. And they'll put you on the floor and could kill you quickly. So this is what they're trying to do to Russia, is trying to say to you, now don't resist us or we're really going to hurt you. And, of course, Russia's strong enough they can say niet. They can say no. And that really drives the bankers crazy because, Putin has cleared out the rat's nest. They had Khodorkovsky and all these other Sabbatean Satanists that were grabbing all the resources after Glasnost and Perestroika, which, again, was another economic takedown of the Soviet Union, Russia. And, Ukraine, 1/3 of the population are Russian, and the rest is basically Russian allies for 500 years. And if the Russians lost Ukraine, they'd lose not only their ability to bring gas and oil through Ukraine to Europe, which is another source of income, but their Black Sea fleet and their ability to get to the Mediterranean and the Bosporus.
Well, they just can't lose it. It's simple. They cannot lose it.
I mean, it's something that basically, if it does, it makes them not a second-rate nation, it makes them basically a destroyed nation.
Agreed.
Right? Very time when they're wanting to expand from an oil-based economy to a broad economy, and they're collaborating even with manufacturing in places like China and designing engineering.
What's going on
the best physicists on Earth right now are Russian.
What's going on in Ukraine is actually war against Russia.
Right, it's a war against Russia.
For what it really is.
And it's also not just a war against Russia. The threat that Saudi Arabia and Israel will attack the Bushehr reactor is a war against China.
Yep, you bet.
Because the primary centers for industry along the coast of China, it'll go over Myanmar or Burma, it'll go over Malaysia, it'll go over the central population areas of China and all their industrial areas of Asia with a massive cloud of really extremely intense radiation.
Yep.
Now, with radiation, you can kill softly, but the low level of radiation over a period of time, and it may be sneaky, so it doesn't make it obvious that the radiation kills you or causes a cardiac arrhythmia or a tumor. But with an acute burst of radiation, you die of an acute immune system failure, cardiac arrhythmias, seizure disorders, and many other things that become very obvious, especially when you're bleeding from every orifice.
Real quick. Stand by, Bill. We have to take a break. We can't miss this one. We'll do that and come right back. Okay, let's get back to our conversation with Bill. Quick update on the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier and its crew. It is now admitted, and this is probably conservative, that the Reagan sailed through twice plumes from Fukushima that contained 30 times over-limit radioactive nuclides in them. These poor crewmen in the ship, below decks and on the decks, were so inundated with this stuff that they're going to have to undergo further therapy, medical tests, evaluation, medical procedures, and I mean surgery and all the rest of it, chelation, bone marrow transplants, and even genetic reprogramming. We basically lost probably the whole crew. This is a catastrophe, and the ship itself may not be usable for years. We don't know.
Well, one of the things that's going on, Jeff, is that the Reagan is a microcosm for what over a longer period of time will happen to the Northern Hemisphere.
Thank you. Precisely.
And what it also means is that people need to start detoxifying right now.
Let's talk about your liquid zeolite. First, tell us about zeolite, and then talk about Bill's got some wonderful products.
Yeah, we have what I call 7-star products. I've been working on this for many years.
Yeah.
And there literally is no health condition, including genetic ones, that I will not approach with a scientifically based, what I call functional medicine approach, a molecular genetics, a plasma physics approach to diagnosis and treatment. For example, if you're exposed, let's say, to 9/11 toxins, which include dioxins and dibenzofurans, because in each of the World Trade Center towers, there are 5,000 tons in each tower of these chemicals in the step-down transformers. Now, with Fukushima, there's different categories that you have to approach. The first is chelation, and I recommend 2 of our major chelators. We have a thing called Max. That's the best oral chelator, Max, and it will pull out the heavy metals and isotopes. One of the most important principles is you have to put in your body the good minerals and get them intracellular so that you don't. So that
the places are all filled with proper minerals, not the
right. So you have the proper
ones.
minerals. We have what's called TRACS, or protein amino acid chelates, the most advanced oral system for bringing minerals in. We also use indiamese, which is indium sulfate that's present in all of the oldest living populations on Earth. But what it does is it optimizes the transport mechanism of minerals into your cells. Once the minerals are in your cells, they actually activate genes, because every one of your genes, it's like the keys on a piano. Your genes are activated by harmonic frequencies, primarily of minerals. It also is modulated by specific concentrations of proteins and biomolecules. But the primary thing that activates most enzymes is minerals. And the reason is the active site of every enzyme is a mineral.
Got it.
It's a mineral that makes bonds, breaks bonds, and creates different molecules.
Why does zeolite work? And tell us about your liquid
zeolite. Well, this one is a different
zeolite.
kind than any other zeolite. What I searched for is an organic source of zeolite that wasn't washed. And ours is a non-acid washed organic zeolite. Now, zeolite is created basically when magma strikes seawater. And when magma strikes seawater, there's the most concentrated mineral in the crust of the Earth is aluminum. It creates these aluminum microcages, or nanoparticles, and the cage literally is bigger than any of even the biggest isotopes like uranium. And what it does is it literally grabs onto it like the best way to think, if you ever heard of a crab fisherman net or a lobster net, it's like a microscopic lobster net or a crab fisherman net for radioisotopes. And once the isotope gets caught inside the cage, you can't get back out. It gets locked in there. It's almost like how they have the little net system where the lobster or the crab gets inside the cage and can't back out again.
Got it.
And when that happens, the body has a very simple way of grabbing these aluminum cages and brooding it out of the bowel and out of the circulation. Now, the one we have is called non-acid wash, because when you modify the aluminum cages, they don't have the same action. The reason why they wash them is because the original aluminum cages were contaminated with heavy metals. So if you get regular zeolite, this non-organic source that doesn't have all these isotopes in it, they're going to have heavy metals in it. When you have non-acid wash organic zeolite, it's so pure that it has no modification of the cage, so it works optimally, but it doesn't have acid, so that the cage is modified, and it doesn't have any contaminant heavy metals in the zeolite, which a lot of other zeolites still have contaminant heavy metals. So
yours is a liquid. How is it administered? How much do you have to take?
I usually recommend for the average person that detoxing rate now probably 10 to 15 drops twice a day is sufficient. Average adult, smaller for a child or a teenager, and the Keeler Max is anywhere from 2 to 5 capsules twice a day. For real high toxic 5, I recommend the average male would be 3 twice a day, and the average female 2.
Okay.
It's got all of the major oral chelating agents. Now, the nice thing about this, some people will try to get things like clay, or they'll get activated charcoal, but those only work in the gut. If you want something in the gut, what you want to do is take a probiotic, because it turns out the probiotics block 85% of the absorption of radioisotopes. So the Dr. Rokovich, we have 2 strains. We have the Rense 6 strain from Paris, which is the most powerful common strain in the world. We get it right from the Paris Pasteur Institute. And the other one is what's called a military grade, called the How Are You strain. This is the most powerful probiotic in human history. It's so powerful, you can take it before you go to Haiti and you will not get cholera. That's how powerful it is.
Well, and what's that called?
You only need to take one every 3 or 4 days, because it's so powerful you don't need to take it daily.
All right, what's it called?
It's called, these are called Living Probiotic, and that's the regular one, the Rense 6 strain, and the other one's real powerful. It's called Living Probiotic Ultra. The Living Probiotic, I tell people take 1 capsule maybe once or twice a day. The Living Probiotic Ultra, every 1 capsule every 3 or 4 days.
How long will it take to repopulate with those probiotics?
Just a couple days. So very powerful.
Okay.
Now, they also reduce gut leakiness, because you end up with lots of what's called zonulin, which you can actually measure. There's a lab that if people contact me, I'll give them the information. But there's a lab we use that can actually measure leakiness of your gut. And when you get radiopharmaceuticals in, it doesn't just damage your DNA and cause cross-links. It strips electrons. It also makes your gut more leaky, so you're more likely to develop food allergies, more likely to become autoimmune, more likely to get a breakdown of blood-brain barrier, and more likely to get heavy isotopes because you damaged ion channels to get into your heart muscle. So Stasiumax is a false substitute for magnesium. The magnesium is a mineral of life. It's the mineral that converts sunlight into energy in all plants, but it's also the mineral that is the most powerful, important mineral inside of all the cells.
It's also the mineral we are most commonly deficient in.
Right. So for every 10,000 atoms of magnesium in a cell, there's only 1 atom of calcium. And the calcium is allowed in ion channels and then kicked back out again. If the ion channels are damaged, the calcium rushes in and is like a wild man with a fire axe inside a factory. So the magnesium does all kinds of things. It modulates glutathione peroxidase, DNA replication, mitochondriogenesis, making new mitochondria, the oxidative phosphorylation in the Krebs cycle. There's over 300 enzymes that are totally dependent on magnesium and other cofactor minerals like molybdenum, selenium is very important as well. And so I use indiamines, which will bring the minerals up 1 drop in the morning away from food or drink for 20 minutes for 50 pounds body weight, and it optimizes the intracellular mineral content.
Okay.
If you're going to detox, I tell people everybody should have infrared sauna. We have the low ELF, very high intensity, goes through 12 inches of human tissue, brain, everything, without significant heat. You don't need to get hot to get detoxified. And it's the most powerful. And we also use pulsed magnetic field like the Soma Pulse, which was developed at NASA. And when you take those, you immobilize them, but you have to have the nutraceuticals ready, because once you get the toxins and the chemicals moving, you got to grab
them out of there. Yeah, I got it. Sure. Okay, hold on a second. We'll be right back. Okay, back with Bill. All right, Bill. Let's go on and see how much we can get into this last segment.
It's free radicals, and the first one we recommend is Nutritrala, Nutritrala. The website is NutriMedical, and we ship everywhere in the world, by the way.
NutriMedical.
NutriMedical.com.
Okay.
Now, Nutritrala is the first and only long-acting alpha-lipoic acid. And what ALA does is recycle your fat and water-soluble antioxidant system. So effectively, as soon as you start taking it, it's like your body is now on, say, 10 or 20 grams of vitamin C a day, vitamin E, vitamin D. In other words, it reactivates and reoxidizes say reduced glutathione, so it recycles glutathione that's oxidized.
Fascinating, yeah.
And then reactivates it. So that's very important. The next one is what's called cell detox glutathione, and it's more powerful than naturopaths or MDs. And we used it when we were in a hyperbaric. I was a consultant at a hyperbaric clinic in Denver, 3 atmospheres of pure oxygen, and it's more powerful than IV glutathione. The acetyl form, so it's called cell detox glutathione. And the third one is called Regenerex. And it's the best of that do what's called gene activation to activate the genes to protect it. Well, some of the genes are like PGC1 alpha, superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, etc. And what these do is they work in a whole range of things. And you also have to protect the ion channels. So we use phospholipids, omega cod liver liquid, which is the purest cod liver liquid made from cod liver in the world. We have phospholipids, and we have Neurogen from DHA from algae. And the reason is when you get radiation exposure, you damage the phospholipids and the ion channels. And you need to repair those ion channels. We use gamma E+, which is all the 8 alpha, beta, delta, gamma tocopherols and tocotrienols to repair the ion channels. Because what happens with radiation is it strips electrons, cross-links proteins, damages the ion channels so calcium and other ions rush in. And if your body's deficient, it jams up the enzymes and turns off the enzyme induction for the enzymes that regulate all your cellular reactions. So people that get radiation sickness get mentally slow, they get insomnia, they get abdominal bloating because their gut my plexus gets messed up, they get cardiac arrhythmias, they end up with edema because they're starting to go into heart failure because cesium can literally push, just even not the radioactive, but even regular cesium can push into heart failure. But the radioactive is particularly dangerous. What happens with strontium, it decays to yttrium. And when it decays, it's one of the highest keV beta particle or electron emitters, and it's so powerful that if you put somebody with strontium poisoning in an X-ray unit and there's lead around, when it hits the lead, it actually generates X-rays. So it actually makes the whole place very dangerous for workers. So you can't bring someone into, let's say, a hospital
who's been contaminated. They're just like a walking
they get a lot of men on strontium. They're actually going to be generating.
They're a walking emitter.
Yeah, and the X-rays can also generate when it hits other metals. So in a house or a kitchen, if you got strontium poisoning, it's low level, you're going to generate a certain amount of X-rays as well. So,
all right. I've got sitting around a number of packages of that French green clay. And
that was given by the Russians. They used the French green clay to try to regulate
Chernobyl. They put it in chocolate bars and everything else. That was before liquid zeolite came along.
Yeah, the liquid zeolite's way better. The chocolate thing, if you don't have enough fluids when you do that, you can get a bowel obstruction or diverticulosis.
Well, your liquid zeolite is I want that front and center.
And the Keeler Max, I recommend both.
Yeah.
And the reason is that basically right now people are going to start bioaccumulating, and we don't know, depending on the gene SNPs or polymorphism, the previous toxins or the weaknesses of a person, when they're going to hit what I call the trip point, where one organ system is going to start to flip over and decompensate. To give you an example, let's say somebody's pre-diabetic. It's going to shove people into diabetes. May make people get insomnia and manic depressive attacks.
Right.
So it's going to basically, these long-acting isotopes will bring forth and accelerate all chronic illness. I don't mean some, I mean all chronic illness. So a lot of people will have accelerated onset of dementia, atrial fibrillation, polyneuropathy, compartment syndrome, entrapment.
Fun time in the old town tonight.
Yes, everything is going to fly apart. And what you'll find in fetal things, there'll be a lot of what's called fetal wasting, where the number of women who can conceive a normal fetus will drop dramatically in the next, say, 2 to 5 years. And and when they start doing ultrasounds, they're going to be doing a lot. And I don't agree with abortion, but they're going to be doing a lot of abortions. A lot of women will elect to not get pregnant at all if they don't solve this problem.
Correct.
Because they have to drink clean filtered water. And now the big problem is they've got here in Carlsbad, California, near where I live, they're going to do a desalination of the oceans, which means it's poison, and they're going to use microtubules to filter it, but they're not going to take out the isotopes.
No. That water is not nearly as good as groundwater or anything on land.
Right, exactly. So, in fact, you're even better off to use, if there is rain, which we have a rain collection system, better to have a well. But we have a BEV system, BEV 100, 300, that'll pull everything out. And I mean, it's cleaner than distilled. So, if people aren't preparing for what's going to happen,
I talked a lot today, and luckily I'm taking a lot of nutraceuticals, but I've been on the phone probably 8 hours today.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, the problem is that a lot of people don't see it or smell or taste it, so they're not going to prepare themselves.
All right, take a second, get a drink of water. Hold on, go get a drink. It's all right. All right, what we're talking about here are things that you can do to detoxify yourself, to remove some of the radiation from your body, and we're all going to be picking it up, directly or indirectly, one way or the other. We're going to get it. We've been getting it in the air already for 3 years. Oh, it's low, and it's not easy to measure. I've measured it. I've picked up things 2 and 3 times higher than background outdoors. It's here, and it is what? What's the key word? Oh, you know it. It's called bioaccumulation. It doesn't
by the way,
go away.
If somebody wants to find out what's in their body, I went to talk to this Dr. Shandell, who had this American Metabolic Labs in Florida, and they're getting a gamma counter, which means you can do just a random urine test, but better still, you want to do an oral challenge. You want to take Killer Max and liquid zeolite, and you want to pulse yourself with energetic therapy, infrared sauna, and pulse magnetic field. Because a lot of these sequestered chemical and radiological toxins, heavy metals, they won't come out of compartments unless they're hit with energy. And when you do, you got to be prepared because they're going to shoot through the ceiling. And I've done tests where we had these technologies we sell to people through the site NutriMedical, and we have the infrared, low ELF saunas, lumen photon light therapy, and pulse magnetic field, which is the most portable is the Soma Pulse, which from developed at NASA. That'll increase stem cells 400%, but it also will dump heavy metals and chemicals. And if you want to test it, ideally what you want to do is take the oral chelating agents for at least a week and get some sessions for the 2 or 3 days before you do the urine sample of infrared sauna, if you're in your area, and get a little Soma pulse magnetic field, or get into it.
You say infrared sauna, that's far infrared, right?
Yeah, far infrared, and you don't want regular sauna. Regular sauna doesn't do this.
No, far infrared is
sauna.
much different.
I tell people you don't even have to get hot. You can actually leave the door open a crack 4 or 5 inches and not get over 108 degrees. And what will happen is the infrared light goes through your body and it actually mobilizes the toxins up.
I've been sleeping on a far infrared pad for the last several years.
Very smart. And the most powerful little pad system is called the lumen photon, developed by a French scientist. And we have manufactured in Mexico, but we have the LEDs that are the most powerful in the world. Penetrates through a foot of tissue. And so you can use these little pads to detox over areas like the heavy metals, for example, like cesium and strontium, are going to bioaccumulate in people's hearts. The rate of heart disease is going to go exorbitant.
But there is a way to get that out.
Oh, yeah, very easy, actually. As soon as you hit with infrared sauna, your body starts dumping it. They did research at Mayo, and they found using that without any drugs or even nutraceuticals, just far infrared sauna can reverse congestive heart failure.
Wow. Well, sleeping on it has been very good.
And then when you add the nutraceuticals, like we have, activated non-crystallizing, the only non-crystallizing CoQ10 ubiquinol. We have acetyl L-carnitine. We have actual magnesium ATP, the actual ATP with tied to magnesium. And we have D-ribose that will convert to and activate and create ATP. We have triacetyluridine, mitochondrial catalyst, and all these other nutraceuticals. And we can take somebody out of heart failure in a matter of a couple of days. Without any drug. No drug. And number that we don't use any diuretics. Our Power C Plus is the only mixed mineral ascorbate. Calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium ascorbate. And it'll pull the fluid off anybody. And you don't want to take diuretics because it thickens your blood. It actually decreases total body magnesium. And it causes shutdown of your antioxidant system to protect you from oxidative stress. Plus, it increases the chances that you're going to actually get a plaque because it actually increases the rate of plaque formation. So when you take diuretics like Lasix,
those things are all time bombs.
They're all dangerous. I mean, I call them pre-embalming drugs. So I say these doctors, and unfortunately a lot of naturopaths are basically doctors without a script. Once they have a limited knowledge of these areas, which are very complex, they then refer to their colleagues to cover their butt legally. And then the doctors toxify and do unnecessary procedures on the patient.
That's true.
They don't look at the idea, maybe my patient's got mercury amalgams in their teeth, and they added to that Fukushima, so they're in heart failure. Or maybe they're in renal failure because they're pre-diabetic. We need to reduce insulin resistance, and we need to repair the glomeruli. We use things called diosmin, developed in Europe over the last 35 years. And we use things like fat-soluble thiamine and long-acting alpha-lipoic acid and we can prove that your microalbumin within 30 days will drop toward normal or completely normalized by that time. So there's no need for drugs in chronic illness. There's no need for drugs in chronic illness. I call pre-embalming. It's extremely dangerous, and what's happening is we have an uneducated health profession that's a disease management profession that knows very little intermediate metabolism, almost no genetics, no toxicology, no infectious disease, including stealth infections that can cause cancer or autoimmune disease, no approach toward a scientific basis for multimodal approach to the plasma physics of the human body, or the toxicology of how things combine so you get a total load of electrotoxins like smart meters and Wi-Fi networks, genetically modified food that modify epigenetics, or any of these things. So we have basically the public is well, I try to provide this information free to health providers and people that go on the site because they get access to our wellness conditions free if they buy just one product for 6 months. They get access to that in our live stream channel and consults. They get a consult by email and by if they even aren't a customer, and if they're a customer, they can get a phone consult. I don't charge at all, not 1 cent for either king or pauper. Now that might change because I'm starting to get swamped.
Okay.
Well, that's why I got lost in my voice because I'm working so hard trying to help train doctors and patients all over the world.
Got it.
And and they have to know that this information is available. It can be validated at advanced labs, which I have access to, like the Dr. Labs, American Metabolic Labs, Florida, and other labs, and imaging studies and other things that people say if they don't believe me, I can prove it to them, whether they're a health professional or whatever, or biochemist or whatever.
Okay. Very good. Fascinating information. A lot of information. We want to kind of take it a little slower and help people.
We'll do it slower next time. But,
just do a couple of products each time, and
I think the most important thing people should remember from today is there's Ultra Zeolite, which is the only non-acid wash zeolite, and Nutritrala.
That's the liquid Ultra Zeolite.
The Ultra Zeolite is the only one in the Western world, and
and Nutritrala.
No, long-acting alpha-lipoic acid. And they should have been on this already in our Tesla-activated Edgar Casey iodine called Nutriodine, and we have the only manufacturer in the world for it.
All right, very good. Okay, I've got, and I thank you for sending the liquid zeolite and the Nutritrala. I'm on it, so great. All right.
Yeah, those are important that people take them daily, and they should. If they aren't doing them now, when these radiation starts to really bioaccumulate in the next few years, they're not going to know it when they finally hit the point of what's called.
They're not going to know. They won't know.
No, all of a sudden they're going to come down with, like, say, a big sinus infection or pneumonia, or they're going to end up with an osteomyelitis in the bone, or they're going to get cardiac arrhythmias, or polyneuropathy, or just get really confused, like they're getting early dementia.
Oh, yeah. And massive fatigue will overcome you.
Yeah, mitochondriopathy induced by all of this.
Yeah. Bill, thank you very much. We'll talk soon. We'll go through these. So let's take one or two at a time, and we'll just go slow.
Yeah, we'll do that. And we also will have better sound next week. We're testing out our blue box. So
we got you on the blue box. We're going to sound great next time.
I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Take action. Listen to the show.
Thanks.
12 to 3, Monday to Friday Pacific time. And get informed. And the most important thing is to ask better questions.
Indeed. All right, Bill. Good night.